All right, guys, back to Flames Talk, back to Flames TV. This is another exciting segment, another exciting episode of Flames Talk. And I'm your regular host, Flames, and we'll be doing something very, very different today. We're going to talk about something that relates to health. I've never done health topics on this show, and this is actually a first. And no better person that can grace this topic than Apple Doctor himself. He'll be joining me today on Flames Talk. So before we go into what paternity scam is, that is the topic today, paternity scam. Can you just give us a brief outlook of what DNA paternity test entails?
I think I'll start from the process of conception, right? And when a couple decides to come together to have a child, there is the sperm and then there's the egg. This fuse together to have what we refer to as a zygote that ends up becoming, a fetus and then a baby. Now, in the process of all this, the sperm is basically carrying data, or basically DNA per se, and half of it comes from the man. The remaining half of that DNA comes from the woman, which is the ovum or the egg. They fuse together to give rise to a completely unique being that has half of each. And so when we say we're running a paternity test or we're running a DNA test, because there's also maternity test, but the focus is on paternity testing. So when we're running a paternity test or DNA test per se, we're looking at these person and then comparing the DNA to the supposed father. Now, in this case, you're able to tell that, okay, half of this DNA, there is a lot of similarity between this person's DNA and this new person or this baby. And so we can say beyond every shadow of doubt that this person is the father of this person. So it's usually a match per se, there's a percentage match, percentage match of this of DNA. Yeah.
Okay, so but what is done to be able to ascertain this? Is there a blood sample collected from the baby, or is it a strand of hair, a fingernail? What actually?
Yeah. So every part of you contains DNA per se. So and with every part of you, you can tell the genetic makeup of a person. So you don't really need to be invasive. You don't need to take invasive tests. What you can do sometimes is easy as swabbing the inside of a person's mouth to get those cells from the buccal mucosa, strands of hair, just like you mentioned, rather than having to poke a person and then always get blood. The strand of hair, swabbing of the buccal mucosa, any aspect of that person, nails and all that, will give us a picture of what the genetic makeup is.
Now, paternity scam. Over the years, we've seen various forms of scandals. People coming out to say this child is not theirs, both in the popular sector and average people who nobody knows. It's rampant now. A man can raise 4 children and they turn out not to be his. Now, is there a way this man can know without carrying out that paternity test? Can he know that these children are not his? Is there any, we might not say resemblance, because yes, I don't look like my dad, but he's still my dad. But is there a way that a man can tell?
So, human beings have a knack for looking for patterns when there are no patterns. So that's why you can look up in the sky and say this looks like the face of a person, or this cloud looks like a horse, or something, and we start doing that even as children, right? And what I'm trying to say is we have developed a knack for looking for patterns. So it's very easy to say, but this speaking resemble this man, resemble and well, they carry nose. But babies look like everybody up until they start to get some definitive features. Now, initially, you may not be able to tell. And there is no way to tell without any shadow of doubts, except with a test. You can always say, this baby has my nose, or this baby has my, ears. But it's the same way I have other people's nose, but they are not related to me. Some people have my eyes, but they are not related to me. Some people have my type of teeth or lips, but they are not related to me. So on the off chance that, I was probably born to want that. But as a person starts to grow older, you can tell, resemblance among siblings, you can tell resemblance amongst parents. You can look at a person and say, oh yeah, I see why he's your father per se. But I don't think that's enough proof. If you want to be sure beyond any shadow of reasonable doubt, it's always best to run a DNA test.
There's a school of thought that thinks that once your wife gives birth, even while the child is still in the theater, you could just get a strand of that hair and carry out the DNA test without your wife's knowledge. Do you agree with this school of thought? Or should it be something that should be consented? You have a discussion with your wife and tell her this is what you want to do. Or should the man just go ahead to do it? Does that negate a level of trust in that marriage?
I feel that if you create a child with someone else, there should be enough trust. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do paternity tests, or DNA testing, but what I'm saying is, if the first thing on my mind when my boy or my daughter is born is doing a paternity test, then we should call into question that marriage or relationship, right? It means that, there are probably certain things that person has done that is making me question their loyalty. It could be certain things that I've seen. But at the same time, I would say that before a paternity test is done, that the two people talk about it. Why exactly do you want a paternity test done? Whether or not, consent is given, the fact that I inform you first before I do it, because there could be other issues underneath that marriage or relationship, I don't know, that would make me want to run a paternity test without my spouse knowing. It means that, the very foundation of trust in that relationship has been broken. So I think discussion, talk. The person cannot say, because it's my child, I'm not going to allow you to run the paternity test. It's your child as much as it's mine. So we'll run it either ways. So I'm just informing you. And here's why I'm informing you.
With regards to diagnostics, when it comes to running the test, we have two aspects of DNA test. We call one peace of mind and we call the other legal. Now, peace of mind is when you have thoughts that you have those trust issues that you rightly mentioned, they are there and you want to be sure, you want to ascertain that this child is yours, then you run a DNA peace of mind test. Then legal is maybe when you're having legal battles with your wife, there's a divorce in the offing, and you want to be sure that, okay, she will tell you that afterwards this child is not yours, so why are you claiming the child? When with regards to custody of that child, so that's when you now run the legal test. Okay, so these are the times where couples will now come and say, okay, this is where you want to run the test. So now with what is going on, we know what is going on. We know that we are in a state of emergency with regards to relationship and trust. Would you still advise that this is rampant, or would you just say, marry somebody, love them, trust them, and then when it comes to the fact that you need to do DNA test, just rule it out.
Different relationships have different dynamics, right? And only you who is in that relationship would understand the kind of dynamics that you're having in it. If at the point where you begin to feel like you're not the father of a child, please go ahead and have one. If at the point where it looks like your spouse may be displaying, certain character traits that probably were not there, or probably things that you missed, then please go ahead and get one for your peace of mind. The reason DNA tests became rampant in Nigeria, one of the reasons was because of the migration of people out of Nigeria. On a normal day, people were not checking DNA tests. How do you know your father is your father? How do you really know? Is it because you look like that, or because you look like your siblings? Most people never knew until they were required to run it by the embassy or something, and probably some truths began to spill out. So you and up until that point, probably that relationship was fine. Is it fraud? Yes. But I am not of the opinion that you go looking for things that have not spoiled. Right? You can have it for your peace of mind, but I have been in places where my friends are welcoming their newborn babies, and the first, second, third, fourth thoughts in their minds were not, is this baby actually mine? And that's because of the kind of relationship they've had with their spouse, right? But if along a while, probably 2 years, 3 years into the marriage or the relationship, they begin to have doubts, then please, by all means, run one. It's your right to know. Nobody's stopping you. Science has made it easy. In the times where we did not have this technology, there was no way you would have known. So if at any point you begin to doubt, then please run it, please. Our people have been saying that now from clap dance they start. You're not going to immediately think of a paternity test every time you look at your child, except probably your spouse is beginning to give you reasons to do so. And at the point where your spouse is beginning to give you reasons to do so, you should already know that the very fabric or the very foundation of whatever that relationship is has already been tampered with. And it is important that through communication, you try as much as you can to rebuild it. Because even if you go do the paternity test and the child comes out yours, the fact that you still have some suspicions in your mind that you have not addressed is still going to constantly be nagging and eating away at that relationship. That it now looks like everything your partner or your spouse does is going to be looked at in the light of, I just never catch you yet. So there are certain things that you still need to have certain discussions about. You mentioned in the beginning of this video that you don't look like your father. And I don't know what's going on in your father's mind, whether your father has been thinking of running the paternity test simply because you don't look like him, or because you trust your mother too much to be able to say, hey, this child is mine. He has my traits. I trust her, and all that. So I feel that, at the point where you bring up that conversation and say, I want to have a paternity test, it is also important that you explore the reasons why. Why are you having a paternity test? What has been damaged so much that you need to have a paternity test? Whether or not you guys will cover from that particular discussion, I don't know. But discussion, communication, and everything will probably try to help.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Doctor. And I wish you greatness in all your endeavors, whatever you're doing. You're going higher and higher and higher. We keep seeing you on more platforms as well. Last words, your parting words for your fans.
I will say what I've always said. Your body is the only place you have to live. Take care of it.
And drink water.
Yes, drink water.